Welcome to the Sick Moms Guide podcast, episode 4.
Hello. Welcome to the Sick Moms Guide podcast with your host, Jen Hardy. Jen is an author, wife, mom of 7, and collector of eclectic diseases. Jen believes that if moms with health issues can join together to lift the veil of shame and ditch the guilt, then as a community, we will make each other stronger.
I'm excited to talk to Nicole Davis today. I know her because she's currently my occupational therapist and she's been seeing me for a few months. Early on in my treatment, Nicole opened up about having fibromyalgia and that she understands what it's like to live with chronic pain and to live with an invisible illness, and that really endeared her to me. Today, Nicole is going to talk about the shame and stigma of having an invisible illness in her mid-20s. She also discusses the Graston technique and the reason she decided to get certified in it. Never heard of the Graston technique? Stick around. You'll find out all about it. Hey, Nicole. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Jen.
I want to say a little bit about Nicole. Now, the name of the show is The Sick Moms Guide, and we do cater to moms. But when there is a woman that I meet or I know is going to have a significant positive impact on the show, I am going to have her on. And so Nicole is single. Some of the ladies we've got in line to be interviewed are single, but you have so much that you can learn from Nicole because she is so awesome. And I know her personally, so I just want you to know that. And I'm so happy to have you here. So if you can start by just telling a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I'm 28, live in Nashville. By my profession, I'm an occupational therapist. I've been occupational therapist for about 5.5 years. I have 2 jobs in that profession. I work part-time and I work full-time. And I do focus in home health care, primarily at this point in the realm of pain management. I'm certified in a manual therapy technique that I know we're going to talk about them.
Yeah.
But I'm engaged. I have a 7-month-old Labradoodle. That's crazy to keep after. And a rescue cat. And I love yoga and essential oils and all kinds of different things that I will share. But
Great. Okay. So what does your typical day look like?
So I can honestly say with my job, no day is the same. I do home health care, like I said, so I travel for work all day long. I wake up not super early because I'm not a morning person by any means. I think you know what that's like.
Yeah.
And then I kind of try to figure out my day, and I'm on the run the whole rest of the day, from try to get out the door by 8:30 and see patients from probably about 8:30 until 5, sometimes 5:36. It depends on how the day goes. I could travel upwards to like 100 plus miles a day, so it's just a very long day in the car.
That's a lot of time in the car. And 8:00 for me is very early. So to get ready at 8:00 for me, that would be so early. As you know, because you have seen me in the morning, I am not put together. But
I try my best. It used to be a lot harder. Getting a little better as I go. Preparing for motherhood someday.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's they are. You're built-in alarm clocks. That is true.
Yeah.
So going through all this, what kind of illness are you dealing with?
Myself personally.
Yourself personally.
Yeah. So in 2015, about in March 2015, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I think I had it before that. It runs in my family. My mom and my sister both have it. I had symptoms present in the previous year, like 2014, and just starting to feel achy, tired all the time. A kind of pain that somebody at the time, I was 25, should not experience. Should not be that exhausted going shopping. Should not be that exhausted after the day of work. But that's how I felt every single day. I was just miserable. So in March of 2015 was when I finally got the courage to talk to my doctor, and went through all that, getting diagnosed, and the whole process of trying to be honest with myself about how I was feeling, but not have like the shame and dealing with like the stigma of what it's like to have a diagnosis like fibromyalgia, which, like any kind of invisible illness is so hard to talk about because nobody knows what you're talking about when you look fine on the outside, but yet you feel so bad on the inside. So it's taken me a long time to get to where I'm at now, where I can talk about that to people, because I've learned a lot of how to manage my symptoms and things that help, and to a point where I want to help others. But at the time, I did not really want to talk about it because I was embarrassed and I didn't really understand everything so well as I do now. I guess I should mention that I also have endometriosis, which is like another type of invisible illness. And I was diagnosed with that in 2013. So that was kind of the precursor. And I have learned that some women with endometriosis then are more like a higher like predisposition to get fibromyalgia, especially after having some like multiple surgeries for endometriosis that help kind of go in and cauterize endometrial tissue. So, but also, like I said, my mom and my sister have it. So there's also a big genetic predisposition for endometriosis or for fibromyalgia. So that kind of combination.
Right. So can we talk about that for just a second? Because you were saying something about like the shame of it. And I think that's a big part of the reason why I'm doing the podcast is I talk about lifting the veil of shame, because so many of us, and it doesn't matter if you're, single or married or, parent or not a parent, there's this shame involved with, I think, with just any chronic illness, and knowing you can't be like the superwoman. So what made you feel better about that? How did you work through that?
It was definitely a work in progress. I just finally found what works for me, and it took me a long time. And it was sometime last year. I think I had it up like with my last doctor. And there's nothing against doctors. There's a time and place for the medical approach for any illness or anything. We all need our doctors, and it's just with a chronic condition like fibromyalgia, it's like you can focus on being sick, and you can sit around and think about what medication you can take next to treat this symptom, which then causes more symptoms. Or you can focus on being healthy. And once I started focusing on being healthy and doing things that make me feel healthy, I started to get better. And what I mean by that is things that just make my body feel good, like getting the right amount of sleep, getting the right nutrition, getting the type of exercise that my body needs and my body craves. And then finding things like the right deep tissue massage therapist and the right acupuncturist and things like that, that when I started to combine everything, it was like aha moments, like, okay, I'm finally feeling better. And once I got to that point, was like, okay, I'm at a point where I can share this with other people, because I know there's people who felt like me or worse than me and still feel that way, that maybe if they just had like a little shred of like, okay, I've been there too, that I can come out of it. And I just got over the fact that I really don't care what other people think. They don't have to believe me if they don't want to, because that's the thing with pain. And I know, we're going to talk more about this, but when I get into with my patients about talking about pain, it's like, they just want someone to believe them. Like, you just want someone to believe that your pain is a real thing.
Yeah.
You know this, Jen.
Yes, I do. I mean, I'm so thankful that I have you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your technique can see the pain. And we'll talk about that later too, but that it's so like affirming as a patient to have someone who finally says, like, I literally can see your pain. And that's why you're here, because I think what you're doing is so amazing. So,
well, thank you. But yeah, it's just, and that's how I felt for so long. It's like, well, who am I going to talk to about this? Like, oh, my leg hurts. I have sciatica. My back hurts. I'm not going to tell my other 25, 26-year-old friends at the time who, like, they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
But nobody understands unless you're like in those shoes. And so when I finally realized I can do better with being there instead of just being ashamed and hiding it, it's just everything has gotten better for me in the process.
Well, that's great. That's really good.
Yes.
And that's good for other people to hear too, that you can come through and it's not going to end. It's not going to be over, but as long as we keep moving forward and you start seeing a little bit of progress towards some part of it getting better, it does make it more bearable, I think, just to see a little bit of a light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah. Because with chronic illness and any kind of like anything in the autoimmune realm, it's not just like, so for fibromyalgia, the big thing is pain and fatigue, but it doesn't just affect pain and fatigue. It affects your digestive system. It affects your immune system. It affects every system, your mental health and all of those things. Everything's kind of interrelated. So, once you can finally see that, like, just being healthy, okay, the pain's better. Oh, but you know what else is better? My digestion, and I'm sleeping better, and my focus is better. It's a kind of like a ripple effect. So that's how I stopped focusing on each individual thing and how to fix it and just focused on being healthy.
That's good advice for everybody too. Yeah. Because I think especially, when you have so many things, like in my body, there's just so many things that I couldn't address them. I'd spend all day. So yeah, just focusing on just keeping my body as healthy as it can, and then take the biggest things just piece by piece and break it down, because otherwise it's overwhelming. And all you would do all day is think about your problems.
Exactly.
And that is not going to make any of us feel better. So
no.
So if you got diagnosed a few years ago, then did you decide to be an occupational therapist before your diagnosis?
Yes. Yeah. So I've been, I went to OT school in, 2007, and I've been licensed since 2012.
So what made you decide to do that? Oh, so I'm sorry. Didn't mean
to be an OT.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I consider myself like the science nerd in high school, and I loved anatomy and I loved biology and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to do something in healthcare, but I wasn't quite ready to like become a doctor at that point. So I shadowed OT, I shadowed PT, I looked at a lot of those, different therapies, and OT just really resonated with me because it was a different kind of therapy. You're not just helping people like through exercise, although we do that. There's a lot of different creative ways to help people with OT, and you focus on more like the person as a whole instead of breaking it down to like into a body part or specific muscle group that you're working on. Although we do those things too, but it was just very intriguing to me. So I'm happy I chose OT. I am, being here 6 years later. There's times that it's overwhelming, but I'm happy I've been able to go into like a specialty kind of realm now at this point.
Right.
Kind of find what I really like.
Yeah. I'm happy you chose it too.
Yes.
So how do you think having a chronic illness yourself affects the way you see your patients and treat your patients? Or does it change the way you see them?
It definitely does. There's, especially when I encounter somebody who has fibromyalgia on their chart, and I go into to see the patient, and there's a lot of times where I will disclose. And I know with you, I disclose because when I see somebody who's they're down and they're hurt because of the way that they feel on the inside, and they're just so tired of being sick and tired and trying to find what's wrong with them and going to so many doctor's appointments and being on so many medications. I will often share like, hey, I totally get it. I know I may not look it and I'm sitting here as your therapist, but I've been there too. May not be as bad as you today, but I've had my days and I know how bad that kind of pain is. Even just the other day, I saw somebody who was, really, really suffering. And I looked her in the eye and I just said, I believe you. Like I said, I believe that you're in this kind of pain, and I know it's awful and you shouldn't have to feel this way. And I hope it comforted her. I feel like it did.
Oh, I'm sure it did. I think for a lot of us, just hearing someone in the medical profession say, I believe you. Mm-hmm. That's such a big, important thing for a lot of us because we've been told so many times it's in our head or whatever. So it is nice. And that's why, everyone I have on here has to have gone through some kind of health issue, because it's so easy to say, well, just exercise for 30 minutes a day, you'll get better. if you've
Mhm.
ever been to the point where you can't exercise for 30 minutes a day.
Yeah. And that's what, you know, in this particular case and with this person, I mean, the mental health aspect had gotten so bad. And I didn't even disclose anything about my history. I just wanted her to know that I believed her where her pain
Right.
was real. And so I do think I do see things from a different perspective, because especially if you have a diagnosis like fibromyalgia on your chart, a lot of medical professionals, and I hate to say this because I don't, want to say anything about my peers, but they just write you off. A lot of people don't believe it. They just think, oh, that's a dumb diagnosis. It's not real. Well, it's a dumb diagnosis for millions of people across the country if it's just a dumb diagnosis. And there's a lot of people who present, I'm in a fibromyalgia support group on Facebook, and there's people who post things and I'm like, I totally get that. We are this, we're from the same mold, we feel the same way. We have the same symptoms. If it wasn't a condition, then it wouldn't be millions of people who feel the same way and go through the same struggles all the time. So I've really tried to show empathy as best I can. And that's why, when we go in and talk a little bit more about what I'm certified in, I chose that because I felt it firsthand and I felt it work firsthand. And so I knew that that's what I needed to do as far as helping other people.
All right. Well, do you want to talk about what you do, the special thing you do? I think that would be great.
Yes. So I am now certified in what's called the Graston technique. And it's a form of instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. I know that's a mouthful. But it's abbreviated ISTIM. So if you hear me say ISTIM, that's what I'm referring to. Graston technique is a specific type of ISTIM. There are other, companies and other things out there, or there's just generic, some people who take a generic course in ISTIM and might do therapy that way. But what it consists of is you use an instrument, most of the time a stainless steel instrument, and with some emollient on the skin, and you glide that over the soft tissue using like a variety of strokes to help release soft tissue adhesions, trigger points, what we call knots in your muscles. That's what you're thinking of here. You're particularly targeting the fascia. So it's, soft tissue mobilization, some people might consider it a type of myofascial release. The fascia is what, encapsulates all your muscles, your joints, your tendons. It runs throughout your body underneath a thick layer of tissue underneath your skin, kind of holds everything together. So anytime there's like a trauma, chronic inflammation, an injury to a joint, a muscle group, anything like that, not only will the joint and the muscle be inflamed, torn, whatever, but that fascia also becomes, it changes the structure of the fascia. And that's what causes those kind of adhesions in the fascia, in the muscle, and presents causing people to have a lot of pain. So a lot of the time, even though you say you have arthritis, so you have arthritis in your knee, and although the arthritis is the cause of the pain, it's the source of the inflammation, the soft tissue around the joint is where you're actually feeling the pain from. So when you have the Graston technique or another form of myofascial release and you're able to rework that fascia, not only will the joint move better, okay, because the inflammation, the structure around that joint will be calm down, but the pain will significantly decrease because the pain, like I said, the source of it is actually a lot of the time in that fascia, which is, I learned in my, my Graston training, it's considered to be your largest sensory organ in your body. People often say that about your skin, but it's that structure right underneath the skin, that fascia. So all those nerve endings, that cause you to have all that pain, that's where it's running through your fascial system.
Interesting. Okay. See, and that's a good lesson in how that all works too, so we can understand better.
Yeah. So I was going to say, so I know that's a lot of information. And I learned about the Graston technique from a coworker of mine who moved back to Tennessee from California. Because out in California, it's, everything's, in the medical profession usually is a little bit more advanced than what, and then it kind of trickles back east. But I just thought it was so cool what she had learned. And she's just trained in ISTM, like a generic ISTM. And she has a stainless, I don't know if it's full stainless steel, but a tool that she uses. And she showed me, I was training her, on her new job, but she was showing me how to use this in the process. And so I learned a lot. And I went out and bought these little tools on Amazon, these little, they're called gua sha tools, because gua sha is actually Chinese medicine technique. That's kind of where ISTM got its roots from. And I practiced on myself, I practiced on friends or whatever, and just was amazed by the difference, even just with those tools. So I finally decided, I think it was last year around this time, that I was ready. Like I, had tried, looked at, online courses and, bought myself a metal other ISTM tool at that point, was working on patients and having good results, that I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be the expert. If I was going to do it, I wanted to do it the right way.
Right.
So I got trained in my first course last July, got my instruments, and then just this January I took my level 2 course and got my certification. So now I'm considered to be a Graston technique specialist, and I'm excited where that will take me, but it's been very, very eye-opening in the ways I've been able to help people since getting this training.
Right. And not just anybody can be Graston certified, because I was doing some research before I interviewed you. So I couldn't just go and be certified in that. You have to already be a medical professional to be able to do that. So if you find somebody that says that they're doing it and they're not a medical professional, that's not really what they're doing.
Yes.
So be cautious, and it would be a recommendation too, and who you're having do it. But it's such a wonderful thing. I know when I'm having pain, Nicole actually does the Graston technique for me, and it greatly reduces my pain. And at first it may be a little bit more pain while it's happening. But the next day, oh my goodness, I've got so much relief from it. And I mean, it's not painful by any means. It's just like pressure sometimes, but it's so nice. And I think a lot of times just having a hands-on thing too, when you have a chronic illness, especially if you're isolated, having something like that where you've got somebody helping you work with your body, that component of it is also healing. Mm-hmm. So, you got the technique itself, and then you've got somebody who's coming in saying, I care about you enough that I'm going to help you do this thing, working with your body. It's a different approach than taking a medicine. And obviously if you need a medicine, take the medicine, but it's a nice auxiliary or complementary thing to have. And I know personally it's helped me a great deal, which is why I wanted Nicole to be here today. Because it's really fascinating. This completely different thing to me. So hopefully other people can learn too.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add a little bit more about that.
Yeah, please.
I've mentioned it to people, that I've been trained, and some people are like, oh, I've had that before, and that was awful. It was the most painful thing ever. And I had bruises, and it was very uncomfortable. And so I'd just like to say that it's a little bit of like a stigma with it, because people have done forms of, like I said, ISTM over the years and refer to it that, oh, I'm doing Graston technique, when it's not actually Graston technique. In my courses, I've learned that you are not supposed to bring anyone to the point of bruising intentionally. Okay. If you notice that the skin's getting, too red too quickly, this color's changing on the skin at a rapid rate, and it looks like it's going to bruise, that's when you should stop. You're not supposed to use that much pressure that you're going to, the person's in agony the whole time. There's a lot of research, and Graston Technique as a company continues to do more and more research. And in fact, one of their educators who was, part of the team, she left Graston Technique, the company, so that she could go and do unbiased research. Like, she's no longer paid by them, so that she can show, the differences that you can make on the tissue that you're manipulating. Just, because like I tell you the time, we're increasing blood flow to the area, we're stimulating like new cell, growth and all that kind of stuff is going on. And so when you're able to prove that through like a double blind study, it's pretty interesting. And Graston Technique, on their website, they have so much good information on there, and the different levels of research that are available, and several articles that have been published already. But the science has proven that you are gonna increase, the circulation and, help with tissue healing and tissue proliferation, all this stuff that happens when someone's healing from an injury. You're gonna do that with light pressure. You don't need to do it with such heavy pressure all the time. So you're going to increase your pressure with people, in some cases like yourself, who have tight, painful muscles. Like you have trigger points, you have things that need to be released. So maybe you'll do a little bit more of a medium to not, I wouldn't say fully heavy pressure. You don't really need to. That's the nice thing about having a tool in your hand to do it for you. Whereas a massage therapist would be like elbow deep trying to get that trigger point out. You don't need to necessarily do that with the Graston Technique. I should mention, there's there's contraindications to any kind of intervention. So for people that are on blood thinners, you have to be cautious, any kind of infection. And this is all listed on the Graston Technique website too, but if somebody has an open wound, I'm not doing it over any open wound. If somebody has a fracture, I'm not doing it over any fractures. I can do it in the areas like, around the fracture. So if somebody has a broken shoulder and they have inflammation all the way down their arm, I can do it at their lower, above their elbow, their lower arm. But I would not be doing it over an unhealed fracture. That wouldn't be smart.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound like it would be fun for the patient either.
Yeah. Yeah. So, those are just some takeaway points, but just know that, if your friend or whatever had a bad experience with somebody doing Graston Technique, that's not the proper way to do it, to bruise or cause that kind of significant pain afterwards. If you look up pictures online of images, you might see some people with bruising. That's more typical for gua sha. If you went to see a, traditional gua sha practitioner, you probably would leave with bruising. But Graston Technique, obviously it's embraced by Western medicine and everything like that. So they're not trying to make you leave, looking like you went through, I don't even know, you have all these battle wounds all over yourself after therapy. That's not the point. It is a precaution. And I tell people you might bruise a little bit. You might have some tenderness afterwards, but it's not something that is expected with every treatment.
Okay. Well, that's really good to know. And I'll put a link in the show notes for Graston. So if you can give me the best link, we can have that in the notes.
Yeah.
And that way people can look it up, and we'll have your contact information if anyone's in the Nashville area and is interested in trying it, or they're going to be coming here. That would be really good for them to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what advice would you give a woman who is going through chronic health issues, be it, chronic illness, chronic pain, anything like that? Yeah. What is your best advice?
I would honestly say, I guess, kind of reiterating what I said earlier, is to, if you find something that works for you, if you have a day that you feel better, pay attention to that and try to focus more on that. I know sometimes it's hard, and it's not a one size fits all kind of thing, because just because something helped me doesn't mean it's going to help the next person, especially when, there's depression and anxiety types of, mental health issues involved, because once you're in that cycle, sometimes it's hard to get out of it, with depression, but I would say focus on just being healthy. So break it down into what are the things that make somebody healthy? Do they exercise? What do they eat? How much sleep do they get? And listen to your body. So, if your body's saying, hell no, I ain't exercising today, I ain't gonna do it. Listen to your body. There's times where, yeah, I don't keep up and do the things I should be doing. I'm not always the best at getting the right amount of sleep. But after a couple of days of doing that, I know I'm like, okay, I need to sleep tonight, because if I don't tomorrow, I'm going to feel absolutely terrible. And I know it's harder when you have kids, and it's harder when you have so many things going on, but just trying to take it one day at a time and just do something. My personal advice would do something for yourself. So I didn't really get into this, like what I do for myself to manage my symptoms. And what I do is self-care. I made self-care a priority in 2016, maybe, or 2017. I don't know. It's been for a while though. So I do deep tissue massage about twice a month. I do acupuncture twice a month. I used to do acupuncture once a week. I used to go to the chiropractor like twice a month or once a month. I haven't gone to the chiropractor in a little while. I think I'm feeling a little bit better without so many adjustments right now. So I'm just kind of going to go as an as needed basis. But I take a lot of supplements, a lot of dietary supplements that help just improve my energy, improve my pain. And I'm not talking medications. I'm talking like herbs and supplements that, there's so many things. There's so much stuff out there that can help with this kind of stuff. It's just finding what works for you and not being afraid to try something new. And I use essential oils. And then as far as exercise, I do yoga, because yoga is what makes my body feel good. It's not super strenuous, but I do hot yoga. So I get cardio, which helps. That's what you need to do is cardio. That's going to get your endorphins going. That's going to make you feel better. And with the hot yoga, you're getting out a lot of toxins. So with fibromyalgia, a lot of, your muscles are sore and your body feels, you got all those trigger points. Getting those toxins out really helps with relieving that kind of pain. So those are probably the main big things that I do and have helped me. So for other people who feel similar, it's finding what works for you. It's not, there's things that aren't going to work for everybody, and just making that a priority. I know that's probably hard when you have multiple kids and putting yourself first, but if you can at least pick one day a week that you can put yourself first, one day where you take an hour to do something that's going to help your body, I mean, that will make a big difference over time.
Okay. That's really good advice. That's a lot. That's really good. Okay. Yeah. And the last thing is, what is your superpower?
My superpower, goodness. I guess I would say just being flexible and just being open-minded and throughout this whole process of, being diagnosed and, wanting to learn things that are going to help myself and help others. So I'd say a little bit of it is like my personality traits, but just, I don't know, some people are a little bit more hesitant to try new things, like go into it and do an acupuncture table and just, lay it on me. Let's get these needles, let's try it out. But I think it's made it really fun for me being able to try new alternative therapies. And so I'm now trying to share that through my blog and my Instagram, like the different things that I've tried over the years to help with pain and to help with just improving my overall health, from things like different essential oils and different supplements to flotation therapy and acupuncture and all that stuff. So I started my blog this year in September, or last year in September 2017. So it's only been about 6 months and I still have a lot of work in progress. But, if anybody listens to this one day and checks it out, I'm still getting a lot of content on there, but I hope one day to be able to share more and get my story out there that I can help more people.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and we'll have links to that as well, so people can check out all the things that you've tried and they can see what it's like through your eyes.
Yeah.
It's always good and interesting. And if there's something someone looks at and thinks, I've always wanted to try that, they can see a little bit of it and see if that's the direction they want to go. So
absolutely. Awesome. That's all I'm hoping. If I can help, goodness, one person from it, then that's worth it for me. So,
well, you have helped one person. I can tell you that right now.
aw,
So
thanks,
thank you.
Jen.
And hopefully we can reach out and help more. So thank
Yes,
you
I hope
again
so.
for being here today. I really appreciate you
Yes.
taking the time to do that and hearing
Absolutely.
all your valuable information. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Me too, Jen. I'll see you this week. Bye.
Bye. So I finally understand how fascia works. Thank you again, Nicole, and thank you for listening to us today. If you like the show, please subscribe. That really helps me out. Our intro today was by Nikki Brown, and the music is A New Day by Scott Holmes. Thanks again for listening. See you next week.